Tonight, the family demanding better protection from harmful content online. Christopher Nicolau was 15 when he took his own life after viewing posts on the dark web. On the first anniversary of his death, his parents say they want to protect other young people from going through the same thing.
Traumatising, absolutely traumatising, shocking, unfair, and we need to put a stop to it.
Also ahead, 20 years behind bars for the 18-year-old who stabbed another teenager to death at a house party in Camberley. A rare sight as 5 NATO warships dock on the Thames as a show of reassurance on the first anniversary of the Ukraine war. Plus, putting his money where his mouth is, Sir Rod Stewart, and why he's paying for hospital scans in Essex.
So many things are said and no one follows through. I just want everyone to know that I followed through, and I'd like to do it in Manchester, Glasgow, Edinburgh, all the cities all across England.
Good evening. When Christopher Nicolau took his own life last year, it was after months of viewing online challenges he'd found on the dark web. It was only after he died that his parents found out the 15-year-old from Waltham Cross was being encouraged to self-harm by predators on the internet, and he is not alone. It's thought hundreds of children as young as 12 are being groomed, coerced, and even shown child pornography online. Today's Christopher's family have announced they've set up a new charity to help children and young people cope with online pressures and access activities away from social media. They've been speaking to Antoine Allen.
Dad, can I go and play? And they were the last words I heard from my son.
Christopher Nicolau, a bright teenager from a loving home, but he still took his own life.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
Neither of you need to apologise. We know this was a terrible incident.
Christopher's dad and mum believe their 15-year-old was groomed by dangerous social media chat rooms and forums filled with every parent's fears.
Traumatising, absolutely traumatising, shocking, unfair, and we need to put a stop to it.
Like most teenagers, Chris enjoyed playing online games.
This is our son's room.
He was the type of boy that cared for his mum.
He was always calling me, "Mom, I'm coming home," because I was working then. "Do you want me to do anything? Do you want me to cook anything?" He was caring so much.
But the dark web began to change the happy boy they knew.
The last 40 to 50 days, we started seeing little changes. And like every parent, you'll think, okay, well, his GCSEs are getting close. Maybe he's stressing out a little bit. But we were totally wrong.
A year ago, Christopher went to his room and never came out. Christopher's parents' search for answers led them to the coercive messages their son had received from strangers on social media.
One of them said "Bro, it's all good, life is good, don't worry about nothing." And same time, next message become "Oh my God, you didn't hurt yourself yet, you have to try. Oh my God, it's very nice, you have to."
He was made to become terrified with what he is going through. He was also made to believe that he's being watched. He was made to believe that he needs to complete his challenges.
George has had 2 heart attacks since reading the last comments that showed little remorse or care for his and Narita's loving boy.
In the last vote, last messages, it was from this girl. "Are you dead? Are you dead? Are you dead?" Oh my God, it was so horrible. How you can send someone this kind of messages.
Since Christopher's death, his parents have started a charity with one goal: to ensure no parent shares their heartache. They aim to provide activities for young people that get them away from social media.
If you both were able to give a word of advice to the many concerned parents that will be watching this, what would you say?
Talk with their children, give them advice, show them this, and hopefully the children some will open up.
Well, Antoine, Christopher's parents clearly distraught. It's still very raw for them, isn't it? But this is a growing problem. So what is the government doing to protect young people?
Well, that's right, Lucretia. It's certainly not the first time our viewers have heard a story like Christopher's. Many of them will remember the story of Molly Russell. She was 14 years old from Harrow when she killed herself in 2017 after viewing social media posts about self-harm and suicide. An inquest last year concluded that the online content she viewed contributed to her death. And for what the government are doing, there's an online safety bill that was debated again in Parliament last week. The legislation has changed countless times, but essentially it looks at three things. The first is protecting children. It will require all tech firms to do everything within their power to protect young people from harmful content. It would also make a legal requirement for social media companies to enforce age limits so under 13s can't have accounts. There's going to be real change for big platforms like Facebook and Instagram who have millions of users. It also wants to look at the content that's legal but harmful. This section of the bill has been significantly watered down, but the same way that Ofcom regulates what people see on television, they will now do the same thing for online by making sure social media firms do what they promise. So if Facebook tells its users it does not allow content that encourages self-harm, for example, then they will face a fine if any posts slip through the net. And finally, the hope is that it would bring in new criminal offences, specifically that people who use social media poses to encourage self-harm would now face criminal prosecution in England and Wales. Now, Molly's parents and her local MP, Gareth Thomas, have been backers of this bill, and we spoke to Gareth this afternoon and he shared his opinion. Mm-hmm.
It feels like lessons haven't been properly learnt by the social media giants, and so I really hope the government get the message quickly that action needs to be stepped up here against the social media companies, and to do more to educate young people about the dangers that they can find on social media.
And as our viewers just watched in terms of Chris's parents, a year on, the pain is raw, and that pain will continue all the way to Sunday, where it's the anniversary of what happened. But they want real change. They want to make sure that no parent shares their tears, no parents go through the journey they've gone on and will continue to go on. So they want people to reach out to them, to share those stories, but specifically to talk to their kids and find out what they're watching or reading online.
Good advice. Antoine, thank you. On other news, across the capital today, events have been held to mark the sombre anniversary since Russian troops first invaded Ukraine. A group of school children from St Mary's Ukrainian School in Holland Park gathered to sing songs from their home country. They then laid toys along the pavement to represent the 487 children and babies who've been killed in the war. London's Mayor Sadiq Khan visited a Ukrainian Catholic church in central London where he announced funding for 600 new homes for refugees. The Mayor said the accommodation would support Ukrainian and Afghan refugees who have fled conflicts and are homeless or at risk of becoming homeless. Westminster City Council has announced that part of Bayswater Road will be renamed Kyiv Road. The street, which is directly outside the Russian embassy, was painted in the colours of the Ukrainian flag yesterday as a mark of solidarity. 4 people, though, were arrested. The NATO commander has told ITV News London it's difficult not to intervene when a weaker country is under attack. He was on board one of 5 NATO warships docked on the Thames, here for a scheduled port visit just days after detonating a British World War II bomb off the coast of the Netherlands, but also, they say, as a show of reassurance on the first anniversary of the war. Sam Holder reports.
It is a rare sight. 5 NATO warships on the River Thames. One docked right by Tower Bridge. A show of reassurance, according to NATO, with war feeling closer now than it has for decades. NATO has provided support to the Ukrainian army, but so far there's been careful manoeuvring from all sides to avoid drawing Russia and the alliance into direct conflict. Commander Show told me that NATO is prepared, but it does not expect all-out war.
From my perspective, I can't see that coming because the outfall of such a conflict would be so grave.
Is there a sense of frustration that you can't be more directly involved in Ukraine?
As a professional soldier, it's always difficult to see aggression towards a weaker part and not being able to necessarily do what you wish you could do.
The role of these warships is mine clearance. Mines are being used in waters around Ukraine, and once they're set, they don't go away. Thousands remain in the North Sea alone from the First and Second World Wars. Some are detonated by underwater drones. Others by human hand.
When you get below 50 meters, as I said, it was dark, you turn the light on and you have just one beam of light illuminating the area. And then, most of the time, sometimes the lights go out or it's too much rubble on the seabed. So there's no sight at all and you have to do everything by hand.
So in effect, you are handling mines blind?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah.
Glad you, not me.
Yeah.
The equipment used by the German diving team has been specially designed for stealth.
It is amagnetic, it doesn't produce any bubbles, any sounds on water, so the mines can't detect the diver being there, and then he can approach the mines relatively safe so that he can dispose.
But explosions aren't the only threat, and this warship carries potentially life-saving equipment. If divers come up too quickly, they can develop something called the bends. If they do, they can be put inside this pressurized chamber, which massively increases the chance of survival. This has been a symbolic visit to the capital, a minute's silence held on board to mark a year of war in Ukraine. NATO, keen to show its strength and unity with war on its doorstep. Sam Holder, ITV News.
The ongoing conflict in Ukraine and events across the country marking the war's one-year anniversary will dominate the ITV Evening News at 6:30. Here's a look ahead with Charlene.
Coming up, Ukraine 1 year on. Tonight, we've the latest from Kyiv as the first anniversary of the Russian invasion is marked there and around the world. Also ahead, a 3-day strike by junior doctors in England. We'll have the dates and the details, plus...
My word, does victory taste good.
Could Newcastle taste domestic glory for the first time since 1955? We'll have the build-up to Sunday's Carabao Cup clash against Manchester United. So join us for those stories and more from 6:30.
Next from us, an 18-year-old has been told he'll serve a minimum of 20 years behind bars for killing another teenager in Surrey. Kyle Wright was stabbed to death outside a house party on Greenhill Road in Camberley last December. He was 17. Today, his uncle told ITV News that Kyle was an angel who lit up every room he walked into. Carolyn Sim reports.
He was a 17-year-old boy who'd been at a friend's birthday party when he was stabbed to death in the street. And today, Kyle Wright's killer was put behind bars for 20 years. Outside court, his mother and uncle said justice had been served.
Our memories will always live on, that he was an angel, a child that God have afforded us to have for 17 years. And sadly, he was taken from us in such a horrific crime. And so our reflect now is to try to patch all the ends that was torn.
The court heard how Jonathan Cox, himself only 17 at the time, had taken a machete to the party. He's caught on CCTV cycling and then walking to Greenhill Road. It was there that he confronted Kyle, taking out his knife and stabbing him once in the chest. The following day, Cox was again spotted coming and going from his house. Police later discovered he'd been getting rid of any evidence, his phone, clothes and the murder weapon, which has never been found.
The court heard that Cox's social media accounts were full of pictures of him posing with knives. The judge told him he had an abiding and unhealthy obsession with them. And in sentencing him to 20 years, he said, "You are a very dangerous person who will respond with violence at any confrontation."
In a statement read in court, Kyle's mother said he was a kind, gentle man.
When he walks into a room, he lights it up. He always makes sure that if he's with you, you're number one. I looked after Kyle when he was a baby. I looked after him as he becomes an adult, and he was always respected to anyone that he met.
Police say a minor feud between groups of young people from neighbouring towns may have been a motive. Kyle's family still have questions about that. For now, they just have memories. Carolyn Sim, ITV News, Guildford.
Still to come, we'll see what the weather has in store for the weekend. Plus,
this is it. She was in Hamlet playing Ophelia.
What does that tell us? I'll be chatting to the star of Netflix's new detective thriller. And we meet the National Cadet of the Year, who's keeping it in the family. But first, patients at a hospital in Essex got a surprise this morning, a visit from a rock legend, no less. Sir Rod Stewart was at the Alexandra Hospital in Harlow to see for himself how staff are coping and to see how delays to scans are benefiting from some of his own cash after he made a sizable donation. Hannah Pettifer reports.
It was a typical Rod Stewart entrance. The 78-year-old rock star meeting medical staff and fans at the Princess Alexandra Hospital in Harlow. The point of his visit, he said, was to prove he wasn't all mouth and no trousers. 4 weeks ago, he'd called into a phone-in on the NHS in crisis and said he would pay for 10 to 20 people to have a scan. Today, he came true to his word and more. His money paying for this mobile scanning unit and up to 40 people's scans, reducing the waiting list at the hospital by 10%.
So many things are said and no one follows through. I just want everyone to know that I followed through, and I'd like to do it in Manchester, Glasgow, Edinburgh, all the cities all across England.
I mean, how long are you going to do this for?
As long as it takes, It doesn't really cost a great deal of money, so that's why I want to do it as many places as I can. But don't expect me to always show up because, I have to work for a living.
Amari Ryan was one of the patients whose scan Rod Stewart paid for. He's been waiting for 4 months for an MRI on his knee.
I said, your hand, I said, that's the same. Then he shook my hand, then I heard the crowd. What's the word? It was a maze. It was a maze. I appreciate it. God bless him. God bless him.
In the phone-in, the rock star had called for a change in government. This time he was careful not to get too political. But his initial motivation was an NHS in crisis and patients in desperate need of treatment.
It's quite sad, isn't it, that it's got to the state where musicians have to step in and offer their own money to help reduce those waiting lists?
So I think in terms of reducing the waiting list, the hospital has been working in partnership with InHealth for many years. What Rod has done today is help us expedite further patients. So it's a partnership approach.
When Rod Stewart called into the news channel, he said he just wanted to do something good to help people. Today he reiterated that, but also said this wasn't a one-off, with more money for scanning units to come. Hannah Pettifer, ITV News, Harlow.
The Roald Dahl row took a new twist today. Earlier this week, the publisher of his works, Puffin UK, announced they'd written a new version of the classics, taking on the twits and other characters by changing language on weight, mental health and appearance. Well, after quite a backlash, they've now said they will release a Roald Dahl classic collection to keep the author's unedited texts in print. Sport and to the Premier League now, and after last weekend's defeat to Southampton, Chelsea are hoping for a win when they play away to Spurs on Sunday. Looking ahead to the match, head coach Graham Potter said Chelsea players had the worst pre-season ever in the summer. The Blues have just had one win in their last 10 matches, and Potter is putting that partly down to the sub-optimal pre-season he says some of his players had.
It's really tough. Like I said, I think my quote is it's probably the toughest job in football. That was a few weeks ago, and there are lots of factors for that. And again, if you just take the season, suboptimal pre-season. Speaking to a couple of the experienced guys, sort of thought it was the worst pre-season they've had for different reasons. It's not to blame anybody for different reasons, that happened.
Now, my guest tonight burst onto our screens during lockdown, playing Jahid in the hugely popular Alex Rider series. And now Ali Haji Hashmati is about to go global with a new show on Netflix. The 21-year-old from Ealing is starring in the new supernatural series, Lockwood & Co. Well, he's popped in to see us. But before we talk to him, let's take a look at the show.
This is it. She was in Hamlet, playing Ophelia.
What does that tell us?
Why must I be surrounded by Philistines? Wait there.
Annabelle Ward's moving Ophelia captures the depths of tragic romance.
Precisely. These kind of depths.
Oh, and Ali joins us now. Thank you so much for coming in to talk to me.
Thank you for having me.
That looks quite exciting. Lockwood & Co. Tell us what it's all about.
Essentially, it's about these three teenagers who go out at night in London and fight ghosts. It's filled with brilliant action sequences, comedy, and hopefully stakes that can be relevant for everyone of all ages.
Yeah, and it's a huge show on Netflix, isn't it, already? I think it was top of the chart for a week already. I mean, that's a good thing, right? On Netflix, that's a really good thing, because there's lots of competition out there. So you're supernatural, you're Ghostbusters, aren't you? This is what you're doing.
Yeah, essentially, but it's also got elements of kind of thriller to it.
Yeah.
And the three of them are constantly fighting to stay alive and also to keep their business afloat. Yeah.
Was it exciting to make?
So exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, it was crazy because, you know, I was 19 when we started shooting, and all of a sudden you're learning how to sword fight. And on these really amazing locations. In the show, we filmed in Piccadilly Circus. We filmed on the Thames at night.
Oh, amazing. How did you do that? Because obviously Piccadilly Circus is one of the busiest places in London.
Yeah.
How do they get rid of everyone? I always wonder about that when I see it in movies.
You know what? I'm not too sure. But I think the Thames was quite fun as well, because the Thames, we kind of had to stop shooting every time a boat would go by.
Of course.
And we had the massive boat with the crane and the camera attached to it. It was amazing.
Are you a believer in things supernatural? Got to ask a question, haven't I?
I can't say I am, but I say after a shoot like this, where you end up in a lot of spooky locations, you maybe come closer to believing.
Now, this isn't your first big show, because you're also in Alex Rider, weren't you? Because that's another biggie. And is that written by Anthony Horowitz?
It was, so the book series was, and that was when I was 17, and then got fortunate enough to be on Holby City for a few episodes.
Yeah, because I ask about that because he writes the new Bond novels as well. Well, he does. Now, looking to a few years ahead, because you're only 21, Bond, is that something you could see yourself doing in the future? I mean, come on.
Well, listen, I'm really enjoying everything that's happening right now. All of us are so proud of Lockwood & Co. and also Bad Education on BBC iPlayer. So. Yeah, really enjoying it.
You've got lots going on. Well, we'll put a pause on Bond for the moment, but also you are still studying, so you're still part-time at Oxford.
Yeah, part-time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's done remotely, so it's really flexible.
Oh, what are you studying?
I'm studying English literature.
English literature?
Yeah.
Yeah? So what happens then if the acting doesn't work out? What's your plan? I'm sure the acting will work out. Don't listen to me.
No, I mean, I don't know. I'm just enjoying what's happening right now.
Yeah.
And all the opportunities.
Is it hard to juggle it though, to keep it all going?
No, I'd say it's a degree that I'm really passionate about, and it's a job that I'm really passionate about, so it just feels like a lot of fun, and I feel very fortunate to be in the position I'm in.
We're just very lucky to be able to do both. Well, listen, Ali, thank you so much for coming to talk to us. Best of luck with the new show and with Bond in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, things have turned quite chilly again, and it looks like temperatures are set to drop even further over the weekend. Here's Chris with the full forecast.
Feels like home, whatever the weather. Valent Boilers and Heat Pumps sponsors ITV London Weekend Weather.
Hello there. Very good evening to you. Today, yes, there has been a little bit of brightness around for our early risers. This lovely photo sent in from one of our viewers earlier on today, but the cloud is going to continue to build as we go through the weekend. For most of us, staying largely dry, often on the cloudy side, but if you're exposed to the breeze, that wind coming in from the north, it is going to feel rather chilly. Now, the reason for that is because we've got high pressure located to the north of the country, and the winds circulate around the high in a clockwise fashion. That drags down that colder northerly airflow, and where we see the breeze through the weekend, it is going to make it feel on the rather cold side. Now for the rest of this evening and overnight, we're going to see some clear skies out there, isolated showers around, but I think for most of us overnight tonight, a fairly quiet night to come. Temperatures in our towns and cities holding up between 1 to 2 or 3 degrees Celsius, but in the countryside could be dipping just below. Now there will be some sunshine after a chilly start to Saturday morning. The cloud though beginning to increase as we work through the day with isolated showers once again, but I think for the majority of us a dry day to come, and top temperatures through tomorrow afternoon 7 to 8 degrees Celsius, but when you add on the strength of that northerly wind, it's going to feel more like 1 to 3 degrees, so a real day to continue to wrap up warm. February really fighting back. Now high pressure still with us as we go towards Saturday night and into Sunday. You notice it just shifts around, moving north and southwards, but we still see this northerly flow of air. Again, a fairly fine start to our day on Sunday with some sunshine. Chilly though, saying that. The cloud thickening up into the afternoon, and we go through the rest of next week with more cloud around, and where that cloud is thick enough, there could also be some light rain. Bye-bye.
Valent sponsors ITV London weekend weather.
And finally, he was inspired by his grandfather and great-grandfather to become a cadet for St John Ambulance, and keeping it in the family has certainly paid off for 17-year-old Kyle Dean Curtis from Barnet. He's now been named National Cadet of the Year after being selected from more than 9,000 young people. Helen Keenan went to meet him.
So my great-granddad joined in 1924 and was in it until 1964. He then encouraged my granddad to then get involved in 1972, in which he joined as a cadet. He then encouraged for me to get involved, in which I did in December of 2020. And now, 3 years later, I am the National Cadet of the Year for St John.
So it's a bit of a family legacy for you, really.
Yeah, no, it really is. We check the airway of the casualty.
The latest in his family to become a St John Ambulance cadet.
Lean the head back to check for the airway. I would then begin to start compressions or CPR.
And winning the top award for his work, picking up the honour ahead of 9,000 other competitors.
At Arsenal or the Emirates Stadium, I have regularly treated there. One of the major treatments I've had to do is I had a casualty who had fallen from the box level down to the general podium level. He had cut his legs quite bad and his back as well.
17-year-old Kyle joined after being inspired by his granddad, but also to start pursuing his dream career, becoming a paramedic in London.
I am from East London, the East London district in St John. I do believe that in the capital there are unfortunately a lot of incidents, and I feel like if the public were aware of how to at least do emergency first aid, it would mean that there would be a lot less death.
The cadet programme celebrated its centenary last year and plays a huge role in developing future health professionals. Picking up the national award is a prestigious title.
And Kyle setting such an example, I suppose, for all of the young people.
Yes, that's right. And he gets on so well with everybody, really. And he is passionate about the organisation and spreading the word of learning first aid skills.
And who else would he celebrate the news with other than his mentor and biggest supporter?
Hi, Grandad.
Hello.
So, how are you feeling? How are you feeling about me winning National Cadet of the Year?
Yeah, you're very happy you won the award, you know. I mean, you won quite a few awards.
Yeah.
So it's a high privilege to get an award like that.
No, it really is. It really is.
A privilege he hopes his future children will continue. Helen Keenan, ITV News.
Oh, well done, Kyle. And that is it for now. We're back with the latest after ITV News at 10. Charlene will be here next with the ITV Evening News. But from me and the rest of the London team, bye-bye. Have a great evening.